Hey, 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 gang. We are here. We are live. We're doing our thing the best we can anyway. It has been the craziest few days of my entire life, and I'm going to be telling you all about it here on the stream. Obviously, we're not in our normal setup. Some things changed around a little bit this week, which you'll hear all about momentarily, but we are together. We are live. We got a lot to unpack today with a really crazy news day, and I'm very happy to be sharing all of it with you all. And thank you so much for being here on your Tuesday afternoon with us. A day late from yesterday to kick off the week, but technically for me, still kicking off the week, okay? I got a lot of tea to spill. Alex wants me to spill all the tea from yesterday. You're gonna get a great story. But first and foremost, I just wanna say I love all of you. Thank you for being here. You guys are such a bright spot in my life. And even when I have like crazy, insane busy days and I'm trying to be in multiple places all at once and just can't figure out a way to make that work, you guys are so gracious. You always roll with the punches with my crazy travel schedule and everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And no matter where you are watching right now, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Rumble, on Getter, or on Locals, I see all of you in the live chat. I read all of your messages throughout the stream, and literally it makes my day every day. If you guys haven't already officially joined our community in our little corner of the internet, do me a huge favor right now as we kick off this conversation today and hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you are watching on. It makes such a huge difference to me as an independent creator and helps get this very important countercultural message out there. Today's stream looks a lot more grassroots than it normally does when we're in our home studio and have the beautiful camera and the really nice microphone. Today, we're just rolling with the punches, okay? We're gonna make that work. I have some updates for you about our streaming schedule for the rest of the week and content schedule for the rest of the week as well. But first, I wanna tell you all about my insane day yesterday. And even before we do that, I wanna say hi to all of you before we jump right into a great conversation. I see Justin over on YouTube saying, hello, new listener here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you, Justin. You're so great and glad that you're here. Steven is here. Frostfang is here. Seva is here. Orthodox Russ is watching. Amanda says, first time joining a live. Amanda, thank you so much. Servant of Humility is here on YouTube. We've got a bunch of people over on Rumble, but not a ton in the chat. So go ahead and jump on if you guys want to. And we love seeing all of you guys introduce yourself and let us know where you're watching from. The Getter Gang is here. Akram is watching. Reggie is watching. Nitty Witty is here, and we've got the whole Locals game out in force. Johnny Diamond, Alex Padron, Tito is here, Optimistic Living is here, African Warlord is here, and many, many others. Okay, you guys, let me tell you about my day yesterday before we jump into the 3 crazy stories that I want to talk to you about today on the stream. It's a really weird news day. There's a lot going on, and obviously we can't cover literally every single story under the sun, but I can promise you I'm going to have a lot of thoughts about the Hunter Biden charging arrest situation later on in the week. I'm kind of waiting for the whole story to just unfold and get us all of the facts and all of the information before I make a lot of commentary on it. You'll see I do that a lot on pretty much every controversial, cultural, and political topic because I just want to make sure that we know what we're dealing with. We have all of the information in front of us before we really break it down. So I know that's kind of the crazy breaking news story of today. We're going to be talking about that later on during the week, and I know you guys have a lot of thoughts and questions about that as well. But today is a really crazy news day. We're going to be talking across the board about the weird, cringe, pathetic hit piece that the Washington Post tried to write about the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis, who is a wonderful, beautiful, loving wife and mother, godly woman, public servant. I mean, she is an incredible human being. And just you wait until you see how the Washington Post tried to attack her. It is the wildest thing you will ever read. We're going to be talking about that. In other weird, bizarre news, the dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, has officially decided to ban suicide, to ban ending your own life in the nation of North Korea because it is treasonous, apparently, against socialism and against the regime. How we got there and where we go from there for North Koreans, we're going to be talking about, and I'm hoping to have Yeonmi Park, my friend, on the stream later on this week to talk about that in greater depth or early next week. She is an absolute rock star and is so outspoken about all of the crazy things that happen in North Korea. And then finally, I saw this video on my TikTok that I'm just not even going to try to explain to you. So we'll react to a great TikTok about Pride Month getting a little crazier with each passing day this June to round out the stream. As for my day yesterday and why we didn't have a stream, I know I was like literally MIA on the internet yesterday, and I owed you guys a huge explanation. Tito, thank you so much for buying me a cup of coffee by donating in our local super chat. You are the absolute best. I love you guys so much, and that literally just made my whole day. I'm going to buy a cup of coffee first thing that we're done with this stream. Anyway, as for why we weren't here, and I owe you a huge explanation for why we weren't here yesterday. Yesterday, I had a really fun opportunity to fly for a day trip, which I do all the time as part of my job as a content creator, like separate from the stream, the other content that I produce, and was very fortunate to go to Chicago for the day. I rarely go to Chicago. O'Hare has always been tied for one of my least favorite airports, tied with Newark and LAX, and Atlanta is kind of sprinkled in there as well, but I hate flying through ORD. If you are a Chicago native and you like your airport, please explore other parts of the planet, okay? Because there are much better options out there for you. But Chicago is not my favorite place. But I was really excited because I had an opportunity yesterday to fly for a really quick day trip, like in and out, morning, afternoon, be home by the evening, to film a podcast and kind of like a PragerU style video format for a Catholic media company who does really incredible work, and was talking about the lies of modern feminism and how the church has actually been telling the truth about women for thousands of years, but modern feminism is just now starting to figure out that we're being lied to about birth control, we're being lied to about abortion, we're being lied to about hookup culture or running away from marriage or whatever, and why that is happening right now, how people are waking up, and what role the church can have in continuing to tell the truth. It was a fantastic conversation. I had the easiest, breeziest travel opportunity to get to Chicago, filmed my video, filmed this podcast that I was a part of, jumped back in my Uber, was back at the airport with plenty of time to get back on my next flight, and we were going to stream yesterday evening when I got home a little bit later in Miami. So I'm sitting there at the gate, ready to go. We're like about to board in 9 minutes from Chicago to Miami. Hardly a difficult flight. And all of a sudden we get a notification that the flight has been delayed from 4:10 to 6:15. So I'm like, okay, that happens, whatever. I'm annoyed, but I was on the phone with my fiance and he was like, it is pouring rain here. It's about to be really crazy. Like, don't be surprised if you get a flight delay. So my flight gets delayed until 6:15. And then my flight gets completely out of the blue canceled at about 5:30. So I'm like, oh nuts, because that is my only opportunity to go home today. And I don't even have a suitcase. I don't have a change of clothes. I don't have a sweatshirt. I'm like freezing in the Chicago airport yesterday. I don't have a toothbrush. Like literally nothing, no belongings, no backup plan. I am screwed. And it's about 5:30 p.m. in the Chicago airport. So I quickly go onto the American app to see if I can get on standby for the 8 o'clock flight back to Miami. And I'm like, I can just hang out at the airport for a few more hours, whatever, it's fine. Nope, not an option. That flight was outright canceled as well. And it turns out there is such torrential downpouring rains in Miami this week, and a hurricane moving through the Caribbean that is headed straight for Miami. Right now it's a tropical storm, but they're expecting that it might get upgraded to a hurricane. I think it's Tropical Storm Brett, or it will be Hurricane Brett when it comes through. And they've canceled all flights on pretty much every airline coming into Miami from everywhere else. They were grounding every flight from across the country to go home to Miami. So this is my first, like, everything is grounded, you can't go home situation since I moved to Florida and Hurricane Central. So now I'm screwed. Luckily, I was supposed to travel from Miami to Denver today. I was supposed to be landing right about now in Denver because I am here this week to give another speech to that summer camp in Colorado Springs called Summit Ministries on Friday, the same organization that I spoke to a few weeks ago. And my fiance and I came out together to tour our wedding venue and do a bunch of wedding planning stuff, and that is very exciting and fun. So I was already supposed to come to Colorado anyway, and there were a few seats left on the Chicago to Denver flight. But then pretty quickly, the flight that I was supposed to be on the next day from Miami to Denver that my fiance is still on gets canceled. So I'm like, this is not great. Amazingly, there was one seat left on the flight last night from Miami to Denver, and they were taking off flights in South Florida. They were leaving, but they weren't letting anybody else come in. So to make a really long story short, get Brock on this new flight. He gets to Denver. It's all fine. I board this flight to go from Chicago to Denver after waiting in the airport for at least 6 hours. And I sit on the plane, and all of a sudden, all of the power on the plane completely shuts off. Like, everything's dark. There's no AC. The engine is shut off. And I'm like, here we go. This is going to get really fascinating. Turns back on in about 3 minutes, and that ended up not even being an issue, but there is a small dent in the cargo hold of this plane yesterday that they end up resolving in about 30 minutes. So we're sitting there. It's been about an hour and a half since we were supposed to take off, but we're all on the plane. And the captain comes over and says, hey, everybody, we got the issue resolved in the cargo hold. The little dent was fixed, but maintenance doesn't know what to write down in the logbook to confirm that we safely can leave. And so we're on the phone with maintenance headquarters in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they don't know what to write down. So we have to wait for the logbook, and they won't let us take off until then. When I tell you that the level of frustration I began to have just went to unprecedented levels in my life. Like, this is my villain origin story. I already had a really stressful day. I already was like way behind on work, didn't get to stream, had no idea what time I was going anywhere, had no suitcase, had no jacket. I was literally freezing and like dying in this cold plane. I had no toothbrush. I had nothing. No suitcase, no clothes, no plan. But I'm like, it's fine. I'll just borrow clothes from my mom or whatever when I get to Colorado. Every 15 minutes, they would delay this flight 15 more minutes. So they delayed the flight at like 10 to 10:15 to 10:30 to 10:45 to 11 to 11:30. We sat on this tarmac for 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours. Not because there was a problem with the plane. The plane was fixed, but they didn't know what to write down in the logbook of maintenance to tell them the door is fixed. Becca, thank you for your donation in our locals chat. You guys always know how to make me feel better. Literally had no idea what to write down. How about door fixed, dent fixed? Like, does it have to be this difficult? No. It all ends up happening that I arrive in Denver an hour after Brock had his wonderful first class experience. That was the last seat on the plane from Miami to Denver. Leisurely takes his time, gets his bag. I was supposed to get there 2 hours before he was, and I got there an hour after him. So this was all at like 1 a.m. Meanwhile, my parents live about an hour and a half from the airport. So I was like, you can't come pick me up at 1 a.m. That's ridiculous. So then we had to go to a hotel. I got about 3 hours of sleep. I'm really struggling at 1:30 Colorado time right now. It's been a rough few days. So all of that to be said, that is why we did not stream yesterday. That is why we had a little bit of a snafu and why I was MIA on the internet. But I have arrived safely in Colorado. Brock arrived safely in Colorado. We're touring our wedding venue tomorrow, which we've already put the deposit and everything down for, but finally get to see it in person. And we're going to have a great rest of the week in the beautiful Colorado mountains and creating content with all of you guys. Thank you for Isabel's story time and for your flexibility and understanding yesterday. I never want to get on an airplane again, which is not realistic or feasible doing what I do for a living. But the trauma that I experienced emotionally yesterday, like literally at one point I was just sitting on the floor of the Chicago airport crying. And then I sat in my seat 2 hours into this 3-hour delay, just crying. And I was out. I was out of joy. It was the origin of my villain story, okay? And that's just where we're going. And you know what, Alex? You say, with all due respect, Isabel, I'm never flying with you. You have the worst luck. I've always had the best travel luck in the entire world until the last few flights that I've taken. And then all hell has broken loose. So I guess karma is just catching up with me, and like you can't get away with having amazing travel luck every single day. But that's my story from yesterday, and not to bore you with any more of the details, but we are here, we are safe, we are ready to stream. So let's jump right in because I know you guys are ready to talk about all of the crazy news that we have ready to go for the stream today. Starting with, I saw this yesterday as I was sitting there in the Chicago airport having a meltdown, that this story published by the Washington Post started picking up a lot of steam on social media about the First Lady of Florida, the wife of Governor Ron DeSantis, who's now also a presidential candidate, Casey DeSantis. And you guys also know I'm not really providing a ton of commentary on who the primary candidates are right now. I think there's a lot of time before the debates. There's a lot of time before the Republican primary and the Democrat primary as well. And so I'm excited to see more people come out of the woodwork, but not prepared to make a lot of commentary about the presidency side of this. What I really want to focus on is how mainstream media is specifically framing this narrative about conservative women, about married women, about family-oriented and faith-oriented women, because this is not unique to Casey DeSantis, but how this story is put together is so chock full of manipulation, of lies, and frankly, propaganda to try to continue gaslighting women of my generation to run away from everything that's going to make us happy and successful and fulfilled. So I don't know if you guys have read this article yet. It will blow your mind if you haven't already, but we're going to read through it together. And I want all of your guys' feedback and your thoughts and your opinions in our live chat, because this just blew my mind. They didn't attack her for being mean, because you can't. She's the nicest human being ever. They didn't attack her for being ugly or lacking any sense of fashion, because you can't. She's absolutely stunning and has a beautiful sense of fashion. The classic attacks against the spouse of the candidate or the first lady or whatever that you normally see in the media were completely thrown out the window in this particular example. And the Washington Post chose to write this hit piece, supposedly, on Ron DeSantis' wife, Casey DeSantis, who's also a cancer survivor very recently and does amazing work throughout the state of Florida and around the country now. They decided to attack her by calling her a good wife, basically, and a good mom and loyal to her family, which is pretty much the most evil thing you can do in modern society, I guess. This article was written by Ruby Kramer, who I'm sure has a whole journalistic story in and of herself, but it's called Tracing the Power of Casey DeSantis, again, by the Washington Post. So go check this out if you haven't already, because it's absolutely mind-boggling, and you guys should pull it up alongside of us, or you can just follow along here in the stream. As Ron DeSantis pursues the presidency, his wife's role is limitless. Casey, 42, isn't a typical political spouse, meaning we can't attack her in the typical way where you're airheaded or dumb or just vain or ugly or whatever. That's the normal spouse of the politician attack that I normally see in the mainstream media. So if she's not a typical political spouse, how can we attack her? We need to make everyone afraid of her. So her non-typical identity, why does that inspire so much fear? Her rise in TV and insular marriage may tell the story. Insular marriage. Interesting. So if we just look up the definition of the word insular, uninterested in cultures, ideas, or peoples outside of one's own experience. So that might be a bad word if you're talking about somebody who carries prejudice against another culture, or who carries prejudice against someone else's race or someone else's religion or ethnicity or language. But an insular marriage that is uninterested in people outside of your own thing seems to me to be pretty healthy. A loyal, loving wife who doesn't want to cheat on her husband, who only has eyes for her husband, who's still in love with her husband, who is protecting and preserving the institution of marriage in a society that is systematically attacking it. I mean, you guys hear me say this probably 8 times a week at this point, that already today in 2023 America, we have the lowest marriage rate ever recorded in American history since we started recording marriage rates in 1867, and one of the highest divorce rates. So the institution of marriage and the nuclear family is pretty much done, normally speaking, in society. So an insular marriage may not be normal, but I would venture to say it's pretty good. I don't know. Let's see what else Ruby has to say about it. Where's Casey? Ron was asking. Where's she at? Ron was always asking, like a husband who cares to spend time around his wife. Oh no, so evil. Ron DeSantis was in the middle of a picnic in Sioux Center, Iowa, bent over a homemade poster. 4 photos arranged in a neat grid stared back at him. Ron and Casey smiling on election night 2022. Ron and Casey smiling outside the governor's mansion 2021. A headshot of Ron, a headshot of Casey. The governor signed his name in the corner, leaving room for his wife's signature. He was the one running for president, but of course she should sign it too. I don't know where the first lady is, but she'll do it. What is wrong with this picture? Nothing. There's literally nothing wrong with this. Nothing scary or fearful. It's a husband and a wife who are madly in love with one another and who consider their marriage to be a team, a partnership. Ooh, so scary. Casey DeSantis was on the other side of the room. She knew, starting with his early days in politics, when Ron was still a member in Congress, elected at the age of 34, how she wanted to figure in his world. She knew the staff he should hire, former aides said, the invitations he should accept, and the invitations he should decline. She knew his walking path at events, the people he'd stand next to on a stage. She knew his schedule, down to every meeting and call-in fundraiser and congressional vote, because she asked to be copied on the calendar entry. She knew the cowboy boots he should wear, even though at first he complained that they hurt his feet, until a staffer suggested he buy dress shoes instead, at which point he said, Casey got them for me, and that was the end of the conversation about cowboy boots. She knew the earpiece that he should use for live interviews because she had spent 15 years in television, even though at first the earpiece was uncomfortable in his ear, at which point an aide said, Casey got this for you, and that was the end of the conversation about the earpiece. So trust your wife, that she has your best interests at heart and wants the best for you and wants to help you succeed, and she cares about your career. So she wants to know everything that's going on. How oppressive, how evil. Ugh, how dare we? Unbelievable. Ron was always talking about the two of them as one. When we got elected, when we protect freedom, when we fight the woke agenda, as if it was hard to see his role and hers in clear relief. Reporters approached Casey's story with phrases like co-governor, secret weapon, not so secret weapon, the X factor, who knows what's best for Ron. Ron was known to inspire fear, even in his allies. If you can't make him see the light, he has said, quoting Ronald Reagan, make him feel the heat. But Casey, she was a subject that they wouldn't touch if they didn't have to. Notice how nobody is writing articles like this or in this tone of voice about Michelle Obama or about Jill Biden, who clearly is running the show as the co-president situation happening in Washington, D.C. right now, or Hillary Clinton, who everyone knew was like running the White House and pulling all of the strings while Bill was hanging out in the Oval doing some other things. I mean, you never see this vein of thought or this tone taken against the women of the left. They're heralded as feminist icons and heroes who care about their husbands' careers and they want to have a career themselves and they want to be a part of the process. But as soon as Casey DeSantis does it, it's an us, not a me. How dare they? She stood, as many political spouses do, whether they wish to or not, as a mirror onto which the public could project its doubt and criticism. Where Ron was hard and bellicose, people said Casey was soft. Where he was unable to connect with voters, she was charming, telegenic, warm to the touch. Oh no, a charismatic, charming, wonderful, beautiful, warm woman is so bad for America, according to the Washington Post, where he broke his stage presence with an angry outburst or a wild, sarcastic look in his eyes. She was steady in front of an audience. As a young TV anchor, she would stand in front of her bathroom mirror practicing. Before debates during his campaign for governor in 2018, he was instructed to write likable in all caps across the top of his notepad, according to footage published by ABC News, like a reminder. I mean, pretty good reminder. Pretty fair reminder when you're running for governor of one of the biggest states in America. There's nothing wrong with that. And are we just going to pretend like every other candidate isn't having strategy sessions to seem more likable or appear more likable to the general public? I don't know. Of course, then they have all the pictures, this one making it look like, oh no, he hates his too involved wife. My goodness. To the voters she met in Iowa, Casey was likable. She was 42, a mother of 3 kids, aged 3, 5, and 6. She had survived breast cancer after insisting on a mammogram. even when her doctors were reluctant because she had felt something, not physically, she said in 2021, but in her gut, something sitting inside of me just didn't feel right. Next to her husband, in his loose-cut blazers and jeans with his boots curved over the base of a lectern as if he were trying to scale it, Casey had steel-straight posture and a precise, sure way of thinking, clasping the mic with one hand, turning her thumb and forefinger in the other as if adjusting a dial. Her message was always this: she was there to support Ron. If the line ever blurred between his role and hers, she drew it back again, sharp and clean. Yes, Casey would sign your poster, but first, with a small laugh, she would say, "This is when it goes down in value." Yes, Casey would take a photo, but first, she would take a few steps back and gesture towards her husband. "Get one with him," she told a group of police officers in South Carolina this spring. "Get one with him." Ron stood beside the officers and smoothed his blazer, making small talk. "You guys municipal?" A woman raised her phone to take the picture. "All right, First Lady," she said, "you want to hop in there?" Sure, Casey would hop in there. But first, "This is when it goes down in values," she said, squeezing in beside her husband. The officers laughed. Ron smiled. Casey smiled. The camera flashed. Again, when your husband is running to be the president of the United States, it's not about you. No part of that experience is about you, or what you want, or what people think about what you think. You're not running for president. Your family is running to make an impact and fight together as a unit. Nothing wrong with this picture so far. In fact, this is making me like the DeSantis family even more, and I already love them living in Florida today. It wasn't that Casey wanted to make herself small. As a unit, Ron and Casey, one word, have become one of the most guarded and feared partnerships in politics. In the shifting light, they could have the look of a traditional husband and wife, or of two modern partners, co-equals in life and work, a couple in their 40s, next generation. Often he deferred to her, and often she deferred to him. Where was Casey? In 2011, she was in the back of a small Republican gatherings, handing out copies of the book her husband had paid to publish, Dreams from Our Founding Fathers, a treatise on constitutional conservatism that mocked Barack Obama's best-selling memoir. In 2012, she was working one TV show in Jacksonville and planning to launch another while spending her weekends knocking on doors for her husband's first congressional campaign. In 2013, she was packing up their house in Sawgrass, a gated club in Ponte Vedra Beach, to move to his new congressional district, making her commute to work an hour and 7 minutes each way. In 2016, she was home with a newborn when he spent weekdays in Washington. In 2018, she was leaving TV altogether to help him run for governor. And then she was packing boxes again, this time to move to 700 North Adams Street, the governor's mansion in Tallahassee. She deactivated her cell phone number and didn't give out the new one widely. She had always been exceptionally private, but there were friends and colleagues and people she mentored who didn't hear from her again. "You're chasing a ghost," one said. Casey declined requests to be interviewed for this article. Gee, no wonder. I wonder why, Washington Post. In response to an email detailing the reporting in this story, a DeSantis spokesman declined to comment. Casey faded from an entire life in Jacksonville to be here by her husband's side as he runs for president. She was with him on stages, telling voters she got to marry her hero. That's so sweet. I love that. No part of this is making me hate her. Like, literally none. Worst hit piece in history. She was with him on rope lines wearing a black leather jacket bearing his slogan, "Where woke goes to die." That one got super viral all over TikTok. She was with him at picnics like this one in Iowa, where the governor moved through a tent to grill steaks for the cameras, or he thought she was. He tied a red apron around his waist and gripped a spatula. "Where's your better half, Governor?" somebody asked. Behind him, in a matching apron printed with Casey DeSantis in bold, lay untouched beneath the tent. "Where's the First Lady at?" Ron said. Casey was back in the SUV. The wind was causing a disturbance in Iowa, with gusts reaching 30 miles per hour and tornado warnings on the radio. After her husband's speech, she made it about 15 yards toward the tent before she grasped her hair with both hands, twisted it low around the nape of her neck, and retreated for the calm air of the car. The wind was a no. "I gotta get my missus," the governor said under the tent. "I gotta make sure she's good." So checking on your wife, that's bad, supposedly, I guess. I don't understand what the author of this piece is trying to do. Casey does not have to be physically present, though she very often is, to make her influence felt. Ooh, her role in Ron's political and governing life has no exact limit or shape. It is in the air in which he moves. Trying to define the relationship between the politician and spouse is to muddle around a marriage that only two people really know. That's true of any marriage, by the way. You can't pick apart the inner workings of the most intimate relationship someone is ever going to have in their life in a newspaper article and expect that you are going to know all the details. I'm just saying. But over the years, the practice has yielded a tradition of bad gendered cliches in which fear and suspicion glimmer just below the surface. There is fear of crossing the person closest to the politician, in this case, his wife. There is fear of a woman exerting control where traditionally she should not. Fear of hidden influence communicated in intimate spaces, behind closed doors, and in darkened SUVs. Ooh. People have ideas about what a first lady should be. There is a collective, tacit sense when she oversteps her role in what she does or says or wears. We know it when we will see it, even if the role itself has never been well defined or sufficiently updated. People feared Barbara Bush, whose image was America's grandmother, cloaked in caustic wit and opprobrium. What is this person writing? Like a PhD dissertation? First of all, the number of run-on sentences and insane words like opprobrium, which is never used in modern society ever. Why is this worthy of the news? People feared Nancy Reagan as the calculating secret power in the White House. People feared Hillary Clinton for making no secret of her power. Yeah, and you didn't see a piece like this written about her. It's an incredibly weird job, the First Lady of Iceland, Eliza Reid, once wrote. Fear was always going to follow Casey, in part because so many people are scared of Ron, many around him acknowledge. He wields fear like a currency in Tallahassee. They're trying to make him seem like Kim Jong-un, which is just hilarious to me. And as you will see from this article and the next one that we're going to talk about, painting a picture of Ron DeSantis as this like extremist, fascist, authoritarian dictator is the most hilarious, pathetic grab to silence somebody who scares you because of their potential influence I have seen in modern politics. Like, it is so bad. No part of Ron DeSantis is scary. Nobody fears Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida. He's quite beloved in the state of Florida. The force of the man in the governor's office. Ooh. You know Ron DeSantis. This is the guy who wouldn't wear a mask at the Super Bowl when it was held in Tampa. And the media asked him why he was not choosing to wear a mask. And he said, how the hell am I supposed to drink a beer if I don't keep my mask off? Like, this is not a scary man. This is your average dad you would love to have a barbecue with. How we got from that to the force of the man, the fear, it's a small city and everyone's afraid. Ooh, I have no idea. When a group of state lawmakers pledging to support DeSantis for president received invitations to the governor's mansion last month, they refused to talk about the gathering with anyone who hadn't been there, treating it like a state secret, according to two people familiar with the meeting. Also, not abnormal. When you're fundraising for president, that's a pretty normal thing to have quiet, closed-door special dinners for people that are your closest supporters. I mean, what are we doing here? The culture of fear that DeSantis is wielding to make people afraid of him has helped him force through item after item on his agenda. No vaccine mandates, no abortion after 6 weeks, no DEI programs in the classroom, no laws requiring the governor to disclose his travel records. He loosened gun restrictions. He tightened limits on undocumented immigrants. He outlawed gender-affirming care for minors, and he has done it with the language of zero tolerance. And yet, in the midst of this litany, this long list of these horrible dystopian realities that these poor Floridians are having to live through under the fear of their oppressive dictatorial governor, Florida still remains the #1 state people are moving to in the United States of America, myself included. I just moved there in March. 1,200 people a day are moving to Florida from across the United States. Florida has one of the highest rates of resident satisfaction and happiness and joy, unlike other states like California and New York that are really struggling right now. Florida has seen a massive decrease in crime. They're incentivizing people to have families by removing any sales tax whatsoever from any baby product. So not only are they moving us away from a culture of death and trauma and violence in abortion, but they're actually making it easier for you to go in the other direction in as many ways as they can. Universal school choice, they're making it easier to homeschool. They're incentivizing you to lean into your faith life. No wonder everyone's moving to the state of Florida. But if you read this,
that lesbian means
not yet. We're getting to that video. If you read this in isolation, you probably would think, oh no, who would want to live there? His language is so scary, according to the Washington Post. Listen to him talk on stage. The pandemic was a Faucian dystopia. Pretty fair assessment. Woke ideology is a mind virus. Pretty fair description. Parents are seeing gender identity issues shoved down their throats. Pretty fair description. The governor's office would wield 100% of executive power. It would spit nails for its mission. If a member of the team wasn't on board, that person would be eliminated. And of course, it all comes back to the wife, because it's not enough to just blame Ron DeSantis and call him this scary, evil dictator. It always comes down to the wife. Ron and Casey live as an inner circle of two, Ruby writes. There were always two private people, trusting of each other, often exclusively so, but the level of prominence and power they achieved in Tallahassee seemed to insulate their world further, creating a level of distance between Ron and Casey and everyone else. They don't take social calls to the mansion, except for Christmas receptions and Easter egg rolls and the like. DeSantis' supporters say this is a good thing, to be so focused on the mission at work and on their family at home. They say Ron and Casey are normal people in abnormal positions. Normal people go to Chick-fil-A, they say, just like Ron and Casey do. Normal people play t-ball with the kids, just like Ron and Casey do. At the residence, invited guests post their Instagram photos standing next to a sign that reads, Governor's Mansion closed to visiting. Outside, new layers of security fencing have been added to the perimeter. It's just them, said this journalist for a Floridian outlet. They don't have time for girlfriends and guy friends. Ron doesn't go fishing. Maybe he'll go golfing with legislators, but it's not like his buddies. That's not a thing for him, and it's same for her. It doesn't exist. People look to Casey as a way to explain something about the governor, to reinforce or mitigate their ideas about his hardness. What? They noticed what she wore. They mocked or admired her white gloves and caped gowns, an imitation Jackie Kennedy or Melania Trump, depending on who was looking. Oh, so now we're agreeing Melania Trump was beautiful and classy. Because I seem to recall this publication and every other publication over the last several years going after her as like the Antichrist woman, the antithesis of a first lady. But this is a bigger threat now, clearly. So we have to go after Casey DeSantis. Interesting. They criticized her for going by her own middle name, Casey, instead of her first name, Jill, even though she's always gone by Casey. Always a very Southern thing, by the way. Not abnormal whatsoever. Online, they could find ugly conspiracy theories about her breast cancer, that she had exaggerated or even faked it for political gain. In photos from the time of her treatment, you can see she's wearing a wig. The diagnosis was a real gut punch to everyone, said a classmate of Ron's at Yale. He remembers one holiday reception at the mansion in 2021. She was doing her thing, but you could see that she was tired. She never said a word about it, but you knew. You could see it was not easy for her. That, to me, is probably the most infuriating situation. At the end of the day, we're talking about human beings. Thank you. We're talking about a happily married man and woman with kids, and she's got breast cancer, and people are taking these little pot shots. Yeah, it makes you mad. People also had a tendency to attribute Ron decisions to his wife. This article is like literally a PhD dissertation. I feel like I'm reading a book, and I don't know when this is. We're only halfway down the page, so we're going to stop here pretty soon. But go read the rest of this for yourself, because it's wild. To say that Ron knows what he wants to do, but Casey knows how to get there, that she is the executive producer. Donald Trump even liked to poke fun at Casey's influence. I know more about him than anybody, other than perhaps his wife, who is really running his campaign. Not new to the world of politics. Not new whatsoever. But it was Ron who pushed lawmakers to pass laws and then signed them. How dare he as the governor of a state? It was Ron who transformed Florida, who appointed conservative judges. My stars. Casey embraced his hardline policies. Is appointing judges and signing legislation not the job of a governor? Is that all of a sudden a hardline thing to do? No, that's your job. And his tactics in ways that surprised her former colleagues. She talks about Ron's agenda as a mission ordained by God. All of our missions, if we're here to do the right thing, are ordained by God. So nothing weird about that. I love you, Ron, she wrote in the caption. By all accounts, Casey believed in the mission as much as he did, but it was Ron's name on the ballot. I think it's easier for people to try to attribute decisions to her because she's so real and engaging, and he's mission-focused, said a lobbyist. But his staff doesn't even make the decisions. Everything you see is a Ron DeSantis decision that his staff just carries out. I mean, it's a fact. Like, honestly, what are we doing here? Like, what was the point in that situation? What was accomplished? I don't know. I don't know what was accomplished from that. Because ultimately, what? We're just going to keep attacking women Everybody's saying this has got to be a joke. I know. Like, I don't even know how this honestly constituted something worthy of publishing for the Washington Post. I don't. If the point was to make it seem like there's a husband and a wife completely in love with one another who put each other and their family before everybody else in the world, great, you succeeded. If the point was to try to make it seem like this woman loves her husband so much that she's invested in his career and wants to know everything about everything that's going on, great, great. You accomplished that goal. But I find it so fascinating, so unbelievably fascinating that not only is this ramped up attack and ad hominem style battle happening specifically about Ron DeSantis, but that wasn't successful enough in the media that they now have to go after his wife. And I guess I'm not shocked that the Washington Post published this. I mean, WAPO has published all kinds of completely garbage pieces of news and journalism over the last several years. The fact that it was published is not surprising to me in particular. What is surprising to me is that the media seems to have this extremely coordinated, but even amped up line of attack against the governor of Florida, more so than they have for any other candidate. There's a level of gaslighting, there's a level of propaganda, there's a level of creating this narrative of fear that worked really well during COVID about Ron DeSantis to a level that I don't see matched by any other candidate. Frankly, I see more of this type of media put out today about Ron and Casey than I do about Donald Trump. And that should tell you everything you need to know about how absolutely paranoid the media is that the MAGA concept, the populist conservative movement that demanded action from elected officials, that said you need to be accountable to your constituents, that we're looking for results. We're not looking for allegiance to a party or making sure that you can play the political game in Washington to get the best seat on the best committee and stay there for the rest of your life. We want you to go there and do a job in Washington. The media and the establishment and the powers that be, frankly, even the political parties at large, seem to have this completely crippling, paralyzing fear that our awakening as a country that happened in 2015, 2016 to what was really going on behind the scenes is going to outlive Donald Trump, is going to keep going and keep growing and keep making an impact and keep transforming politics and go on offense even after the little small problem of Donald Trump is resolved, which we're seeing play out in real time right now. This narrative is not slowing down anytime soon. It's not. And I only see it ramping up even further. I'm sure the next article is going to be about the kids and how evil and dystopian the DeSantis kids are, which is so trashy and was always out of bounds for a political attack and a political piece, a hit piece, allegedly, which I wouldn't even consider this to be an effective hit piece in the past, but this is only going to continue to ramp up further. And as you see more of these stories keep coming out, I want to challenge you to go out of your way to think critically of why is this narrative so universal, so unilateral, and so successful? Is there maybe a level of fear about somebody with an effective track record, somebody with an extremely close family unit that is not going to be broken anytime soon while we're breaking all of these other families out here, somebody who relies on God far more than they will ever rely on politics or government? Why is that fear there? Why is it there? Why are people afraid of that? Of somebody like that coming to power and making an influence and an impact in society and changing everybody's lives? What can we learn from these continued narratives and these continued lies that we are seeing in the media? Oh man, I hope you guys got a kick out of that, because that is just some good stuff. But I find it so funny that they were literally using all of this language to paint Ron DeSantis to be a picture of this dictatorial figure. First and foremost, if you actually seek counsel from the people around you about your decisions and you want their input on things, people like, I don't know, your wife, you're probably not a dictator. You probably have the capacity to think critically about how your actions are going to be impacting everyone else around you instead of just deciding to do it anyway. And in the same week that this crazy hit piece came out, another story was picking up more traction after being published earlier this month across social media, and that was about an actual dictator in North Korea, Kim Jong-un. And again, we're hoping to dive into this story a little bit deeper than we have time to cover today, probably early next week with my amazing friend, North Korean refugee Yeonmi Park. If you're not already following her, she is so incredible and honestly one of my favorite people in the entire world. So we're going to kind of glaze over the story today, but we are going to come back to it next week. While we're playing political games here and trying to make Ron DeSantis look like this evil fascist dictator or this horrible authoritarian socialist jerk, apparently, which is what everybody wants everybody to think, actual dictators are imposing their extreme ideas, their extreme policies, and their authoritarian dictatorial regime on people so substantially that now the new thing that they have to punish is people killing themselves and ending their own life because of how extreme their policies have gotten. So in case you didn't already hear this, you literally cannot make this up. North Korea and Kim Jong-un have officially declared suicide to be banned in North Korea. It is illegal, it is treasonous, and you will be severely punished for your crime of committing suicide to end your life because of how miserable your life is in North Korea. And this only happened after the suicide rate has absolutely skyrocketed in the nation of North Korea as people are literally starving to death. They're being sent to concentration camps and re-education camps, and obviously are completely cut off and isolated from the rest of the world. And actually insular society. So let's look that up, Washington Post, while we are at it. There, of course, is Kim, the Rocket Man himself. Just some quick facts on this. Kim Jong-un has officially banned suicide in the nation of North Korea and has called it an act of treason against socialism to end your own life. They're doing this and officially making this statement because the number of suicides in North Korea is believed to be skyrocketing. It's extremely difficult to get actual data about how much the rate has skyrocketed because you can't research anything from a non-partial group, an impartial group from around the world in a dictatorial country. Shocking, I know. And Kim told local authorities to try to prevent people from killing themselves. So not only are they making this illegal, they're telling the government employees, the people who are supposed to be enforcing this type of stuff, to go out of their way to tell people, no, you cannot kill yourself and we will forcibly stop you for doing that. Only in a society like North Korea is that even feasible or possible. And if you've never heard Yeonmi, my friend, talk about what it was like to grow up in North Korea and the process to leave and how absolutely harrowing it was, not just the physical journey, which was hard enough in and of itself. She had to flee her country, travel throughout all of China, dealing with human trafficking and being a victim of human trafficking, and then literally run across the Mongolian desert in the middle of the night, being shot at because that was your only way to do that in the dead of winter with no clothes. Amazingly made it through. The physical journey in and of itself was terrible. But the mental journey, the mental anguish that she had to go through each step of the way, knowing if I leave, if I run away, if I make a choice for true freedom, if I dare to think for myself and have my own identity that is free from the supreme leader, the dictator, Kim Jong-un, free from the nation of North Korea, free from the obligation I have as a citizen of this society to give back to it for the rest of my life, which is what I've been taught to think my entire childhood, my entire young life, then not only am I going to be punished, everybody around me is going to get punished as well. And she writes about this in her books and has talked about it really frequently on podcast interviews and speeches that she's given. But the general rule of thumb is if you left North Korea, 3 generations of your family, all of your extended family, all of your aunts, cousins, nieces, nephews, grandkids, everybody, 3 generations of your family would be severely punished. They would be sent to a re-education camp. They might be killed for treason very publicly to make a show of that. They might go out of their way to imprison you in a really embarrassing way, to torture you. I mean, there are horrible, horrible things that happen to the family members of the people who dare to do the simplest thing ever. and that is think for yourself and seek freedom. It blows my mind that these two stories were published in the exact same week. Well, no, I guess one picked up steam in the same week that the other one was published, but same month. These two stories were published in the exact same month. And we have the audacity in the United States of America to try to suggest that very free, very liberating, very open-minded and tolerant and thriving places like Florida, where I live today, are remotely comparable to North Korea. And our own media publishes things that start to get you thinking, oh, that place, you can't go there. That's hateful. That's horrible. They hate everybody who's not them. They want everybody who's not them to die. They want everybody who's not them to be deported or be shut out of their state. We can't support that. We have to follow the narrative. We have to follow the agenda. And bit by bit by bit by bit, over the last several years, we have watched our own media, our own politicians, our own systems of governance start to convince us that we are already living in a horrible totalitarian society, so we have to do the other thing while we march towards an actual totalitarian society. The most courageous thing that you could possibly do is to think for yourself, to set yourself free from the narrative that everybody is trying to beat down into your brain and try to convince you to buy into. And as these narratives get far crazier and far more extreme and far more difficult to counter with the truth, not just talking about socialism versus capitalism or tax policy or even freedom of speech anymore, but literally redefining truth, erasing biological gender, period. Frankly, erasing womanhood, period. Among infinite other examples in the insane upside down culture that we live in, thinking for yourself and seeking out alternative information and speaking the truth into a world that's rejecting it is only going to get harder. I don't say that to freak you out. I don't say that to tell you to back down. I say that because it's going to take all of us. And the only way that we are ever going to prevent actually living in a society like North Korea is if we all, from all around the world, by the way, this is not even a uniquely American problem, if we all dare to do the courageous thing, to speak the truth, and to seek alternative information when the world is telling us that we need to follow the narrative in isolation. It is not going to be easy, let me tell you what. As we continue to project these insane lies as truth in society, like the one I'm about to show you, it's going to take a lot of creative solutions for how we continue fighting back. But I, for one, cannot keep looking at the continued erasure of women, of the genital mutilation that's happening of children that we are calling progress, taking kids away from their parents and their parents losing custody because they're not buying into their child suddenly having gender dysphoria, even though they've never had any signs or symptoms of gender dysphoria for their entire life. I can't keep buying into the FBI and the justice system being weaponized to spy on American citizens for practicing their faith instead of enforcing actual laws in this country. I can't keep buying into that. I can't keep buying into the continued lies about our health, that we need these experimental things in order to survive, which turns out a few years later were not very effective at all, that the only way to be beautiful as a young woman today, or frankly even as a young man, is to embrace body positivity, to be super obese and set yourself up to have diabetes and cancer and strokes and heart disease and every other problem. That's how you get on the cover of a magazine. That's the way that you'll be beautiful and beloved and accepted. I'm tired of buying into that we need to eat more lab-grown meat or eat more Lucky Charms cereal instead of a steak in order to be healthy in our society. We can keep going, example by example by example by example, but when things get to their most extreme, that's when it's going to be the easiest for us to back down. That's when a legitimate hit piece can be published about you, attacking you for being a good wife and a good mom who cares about her family and will put her family first. That's when crap like this gets posted on TikTok because we've been so successful in erasing womanhood in every capacity that we possibly can in our society, removing the word mother from the federal budget and calling them birthing people at the bequest of organizations like Planned Parenthood, allowing the abortion industry to be so successful that we've ripped away the most beautiful gift women can have, allowing men to be named Women of the Year over and over and over again and compete with us, or in front of us, I should say, in sports. Now, we've bought in so much to this that even one TikToker is saying the word lesbian doesn't even apply to just women anymore. Listen to this.
There's a misconception that lesbian means a woman who loves other women, and actually the definition is non-men who are attracted to and love other non-men. Throughout history, there have always been gender non-conforming lesbians, and it's interesting to see nowadays that there are some folks who kind of try to gatekeep that identity and only include folks who identify as women, when that's not what being lesbian is all about. There are trans men who identified as a lesbian for many, many years and still feel comfortable within that community and that identity. There are non-binary folks of all kinds.
All kinds? All kinds? Is non-binary not already a term that means all kinds? What?
Who identify as lesbians. There's like a zillion different ways to be a lesbian.
No,
and
there's
if
not.
that word is what's comfortable for you, then nobody can gatekeep it from you. I am non-binary, transmasculine, and I'm a lesbian.
You're a woman. You are a woman, and I care enough about you. Libby's fired up from this video too. I care enough about you to tell you that truth. Unbelievable. Like I said, it's only going to get crazier. And our solutions to speaking the truth in this really crazy world are only going to have to get more creative. Dare to go make a TikTok account and duet these videos and call them out for what they are. Lies. You might get banned, but you might not. You might reach somebody that really needs to hear it. Speak up in your classroom. Raise your hand when your teacher says something unbelievably stupid that you know needs to be countered with the truth. Go on dates and fall in love and get married, as society is encouraging you to run away in the opposite direction as fast and as far as you possibly can. Sure, you might have a hit piece written about you in the Washington Post someday, but isn't it a much more noble use of our time to start going on offense instead of cowering in fear for the continued attack on truth in our society? It's been dawning on me a lot lately that it's going to take all of us. We're not seeing this slow down at any time soon. No time soon whatsoever. But if it is going to take all of us, I challenge you today to start thinking about what your role in that journey and in our continued fight for truth and goodness and beauty in a very broken world is going to look like, because we're going to need each and every one of you. All right, you guys, what a great stream. We are jumping over to locals right now, so I'm going to be dropping our link in the chat for all of you not currently on locals for our post-stream Q&A. You are all invited to join us over there, and we would love to see you over on locals. It is the place to be, and where we have a little bit more of intimate conversation, and you guys get to see a little bit more of the BTS, the behind the scenes in my life, and just get to know me a little bit more. Plus, we have all kinds of exclusive content that only lives over there. We have a series on dating and a series on the church that is exclusively over on locals and nowhere else, with lots of really fun guests coming up. So click on that link right now in the chat if you want to jump over and continue streaming with us for about 15 minutes. Other than that, we will see you guys back for our next stream very, very soon. My update for you on scheduling as we are transitioning out of the stream. And as I'm telling you this, please, 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 if you haven't already, hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you guys are watching. It is way, way fun to continue getting to know you guys, but to be officially a part of this community and to get all of the notifications for when we're streaming, you need to hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you are watching. And as you guys are doing that, I'm going to tell you up front, we have no stream tomorrow. I'm sorry about that. That was already planned, even when the crazy scheduling snafu happened yesterday with my misfortune in travel purgatory in the Chicago airport, now officially my least favorite airport in America. My fiance and I and my mom and dad are going up to my wedding venue tomorrow. And if you know anything about me, you know I am super adventurous and very outdoorsy, and I like to make things difficult for pretty much no reason. So our wedding venue is way up in the mountains, and it's absolutely spectacular and beautiful and extremely off the grid. And there is no cell service and no Wi-Fi anywhere on the premises, which I'm actually very excited about because I think it's going to make a really intimate and fun and exclusive wedding feeling where people can actually just hang out with each other instead of be on their phone the whole time. So I will be out of commission, I will be out of service, and like literally unplugging from society tomorrow, which I'm very, very excited about. We are back for the stream on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we will be streaming normal time on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern as well. So come over, join us for locals, post-show Q&A that we do every single time. No stream tomorrow, and we will see you guys all again on Thursday. Thank you so much for being here and your continued support. We will see you soon. Locals, don't go anywhere.